Central California. That's where she lives. So I went to see my son down there. And anyway, I connected with the storytellers down there somewhat. And here we are. I really appreciated her work on putting together a March program. And some of you may have seen her March program. It was excellent. So she's a good organizer as well as storyteller. Thank you, Rocky, for coming. And she's going to practice a story today. Great.
So I am unmuted, correct? Yes?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Are you referring to the Stories in Living Color thing in March or the Reboot Presents COVID stories?
Reboot Presents COVID.
Oh, thank you for coming to that. That was really special. Yeah.
It was.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm telling this story in a show by a storytelling group back east in Washington, D.C. called Better Said Than Done. And the theme is the great outdoors. So this is a true story from my life. I have not told it in this form before, so it's a little rough around the edges. And I am using visual enhancements, so I'm practicing. I really appreciate you guys. The bar is low. I can practice, and because I have to, while I'm telling the story, shift a few of my virtual backgrounds. So that's my challenge here today. I'm just curious, in your group, do you guys read, like have your notes on your computer, or do you do it all, just from your head?
Both. Oh, am I muted? Both ways, I'll say. We've begun to cheat more with notes, but really, when we were live, we did barely ever use notes.
Yeah.
But now people are starting to cheat more.
Right. So today I'm going to have my notes there, but at the end, I would like you to tell me if I had enough direct eye contact. I don't want to rely on my notes, but they are there. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So I got that there. Okay. I'm 16 years old, resplendent in full bangs and madly in love, or rather with a huge crush on Billy Blakely, a boy my age at summer camp that year. I desperately want Billy Blakely to like me, and I have a plan to make me stand out from the pack of all the other girls that like him. And it involves this peak right here. That's Cornell Peak, which towers 9,000 plus feet above sea level in California's San Bernardino National Forest. Now, Cornell Peak was a big part of my young life at Camp Roosevelt because only the older campers were allowed to scale it. Every summer, the older teenagers would come back bragging about how they had scaled Cornell and they had done the jump. You see, getting a toehold in the boulders going up the peak was the easy part. The peak itself was so small, only 2 people could fit on it at the same time. And the only way down was to jump about 8 feet onto a flat, slightly tilted oval rock with steep drop-off on all sides. You had to do the jump just right, sort of in a crouching position so that you would land bouncy like a cat, because if you jumped too far or too short, you would tumble over the side to a nasty fate. Now, all the teenagers were bragging. It was sort of about like a badge of honor. And I was aching for this teenage rite of passage. And now this summer it was my turn. I had finally aged up into the golden group of teen boys and girls, including Billy Blakely, who were old enough to go on the 4-day trek. We were a bonded group, fit and flirty and full of ourselves. And Billy Blakely was so cute. And he was a good dancer. And he was excellent in all sports. I knew he liked athletic girls. I was in good shape and a sure-footed, confident hiker. And I was just giddy with the chance to show Billy Blakely my climbing prowess. Now, all of us at camp knew about the legend that Cornell Peak was haunted by shape-shifting rock demons. I don't know how that came about. None of us really believed it, but it kind of added a thrill to the trek. You afraid? No, not me. You? No, not me. No way. So this camp lore grew and grew every summer. The tales about shape-shifting rock demons turning kids into stone grew weirder and weirder. The morning of the hike, Billy Blakely was all full of energy, and he bounded out in front of the group on the trail, and he hid behind a boulder and then jumped out and pranked me when I passed. Of course, I jump, I'm startled, everybody laughs. I laughed too. Ha ha, rock demons. I loved the attention I was getting. We reached the base of Cornell Peak in the late afternoon. I scale it with ease. I'm, in fact, the third kid up on the rock. The two before me had jumped already, and they were sitting on the edge of the oval rock, spotting the next to jump, which was me. And when I got a look at the actual jump, I froze. I didn't let on right away. I said to Billy Blakely behind me, you go ahead. And he went. You go ahead to the others, I said. And the other two went. And then it was just the counselor. And I convinced him. I said, you go. When you're down on the rock, I'll feel safer, and then I'll go. So the counselor went. And then I was alone on the peak. And I couldn't do it. I'm a climber, not a jumper. And for the next 30 minutes, they tried cajoling me every which way with incentives. Hey, I'll give you my Butterfinger. I'll give you my extra candy. And with gentle threats. Rocky, if you don't come down right now, you're not going to get s'mores tonight. Come on, Rocky. There's only one way. Come on now. None of their pleas worked. I was frozen. I couldn't do it. They were getting exasperated with me, and the clock was ticking towards sundown. Finally, the counselor decides to go for help. There's a park ranger lookout station a few miles away on a neighboring peak. Wait here, he said. Yeah, of course. Where am I going to go? As the group is breaking away, Billy Blakely turns back, looking at me, and rolls his eyes, dripping with disdain. So there I am, solo on that tiny peak, my crucible. Yeah, I was scared. I was worried because it was going to be getting dark soon, and maybe they wouldn't come back for me in time. But worse than that, all I could think of was Billy Blakely's eye roll. I felt so embarrassed and like a total failure. For a short while, I could still hear their voices echoing off the canyons and catch glimpses of bright-colored clothing through the pines as they descended. And then everything went quiet. For what felt like a long time, I surveyed the skies, and I looked down into that vast, empty panorama before me, all the way down to the desert floor of Palm Springs. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I detect movement. So way down at the base of Cornell, but on the opposite side from where my friends had just descended. It was a dark black figure, on all fours, with a head but no face. and it was springing up the rocks like a mountain goat, but with superhuman agility. And I rubbed my eyes. It was still there, and then it was gone. It, Sometimes it would rear back on its hind legs and then fling itself forward in death-defying or gravity-defying leaps and bounds, sprinting up faster and faster toward me on the peak, getting closer and closer, so close now I could hear it grunting, and then, close to me, it stopped, and with a flick of its head, a hoodie falls back, revealing the handsome, ruddy face of a young man, about 20 years old, in black jeans and a dark hoodie with a park ranger badge stitched on it. My friends had run into Park Ranger Man on the trail and told him girl stuck on Cornell, and he, knowing Cornell like the back of his hand, he told him to go on to base camp. He would help me out. Park Ranger Man looks at me calmly and he says, hey, don't worry, don't worry. Lots of people come up here and freeze. I seen even big guys who don't want to do the jump. I can't, I cried. Isn't there another way? There's always another way, he chuckled, and he was sweating, and he stripped off his hoodie, and I'm like swooning, dazzled by his rippled six-pack and his winning smile, and without another word, he sprints over to another part of the peak and leans forward with what looks like to me a free fall into a narrow space between two vertical boulders, and he catches the other side with his hands, and straddling that space, he makes a human bridge of his body, and then he commands, hold on to me and lower yourself down this way. And I do, at first gingerly, and then tightly, with gusto. I'm clinging to his chiseled torso, and I'm feeling totally safe, actually, and slightly intoxicated by his wonderful scent and his chest and his heat, the chest moving back and forth. Boy, did I wish I could extend that perilous embrace suspended between a rock and a hard place, innocently entwined with that handsome young man who had come to rescue me. But then, boom, my toes touch flat rock. He jumps down. We're both laughing with relief. He walks me back to base camp. We're talking and laughing the whole way. Everybody's relieved to see me as we stroll nonchalantly into the campfire. Of course, we invite him to stay for s'mores, but my knight in darling hoodie says he's got to be on his way. And he beams a big smile meant only for me as he trots off into the woods. I stand watching his manly shape fade into the dusk, and as I'm doing that, something heavy in me has shifted. My view has shifted. I don't care about Billy Blakely's eye roll, not one bit anymore. Okay.
All right, so how does that feel? We'll give a little, just your own feedback. You did it. You did it.
Hold on just a second. There we go. I forgot to switch the last one. I'd love some feedback. I know where I can improve because I have my, and I love to hear how it fell for you. You can unmute yourselves.
I thought it was great. I really got sucked into it. I'm a person afraid of heights, so I totally got it. I was with you all the way.
You guys are all around my age, And so it's kind of funny to just think back that far and be so titillated by, this opportunity to hug this handsome, sweaty guy totally innocently and to be rescued like that. So the first time I the first time I told it, people were really thrilled with the sexual tension. So I decided to play that up a bit more. Bobby, did you have a comment?
Yes, were you on the top of him or hang on to the bottom part of him?
I was clutching like his torso. That's what I said. His torso
Okay.
and his waist as I used him as a ballast and used my feet along. It was a very dangerous vertical chasm.
So he was perpendicular and you're going like this? Oh, okay.
He was perpendicular.
I thought he was like this and you were crawling underneath him like that.
No, he was like this, and I was kind of going like this with my feet, and then he would kind of. I don't know how it happened, but he was so experienced. He must have done it a bunch of times, even with guys. I don't know.
The way he jumped up the rocks was really, really nicely done.
Did you get a recall of the shape-shifting rock demons?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Very, very nice.
Great. Thank you for letting me practice.
It was wonderful because I love the high mountains as Sarah Lord does. We've been together in high mountains. So we love any adventure stories. Yeah.
Great. I think
Ida has a feedback.
I just loved the story. Yes, the black shape coming up the mountain. At first I thought, oh, it's your imagination and so forth. Yeah. Really built the tension of the story and so forth. Wonderful story. Yes. Very, very sexy guy to hold on to and so forth. And yes, the images in the back were beautifully done.
Yeah, I know that one of a storyteller friends said, "Oh, when you use images, you take away from the person being allowed to imagine it themselves." But I just want to use this format, this Zoom thing, and I think that a lot of people haven't seen, a mountain like this, and I must tell you, because of the setting sun, it really did look like a CGI kind of otherworldly figure. And because he was wearing the black hoodie, all I saw was the black part of the top of his head. And then when he would rear up and then fling himself, it looked animal-like, I really was freaked out. And then for him to be this gorgeous, handsome guy was like, ah. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Did I do enough eye contact? Okay. It felt good to have my notes there, but I don't want to be dependent on them.
And you'll have even fewer of them by the time that day comes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
It
you.
was great. We enjoyed going to the mountains, and I didn't feel it distracted to have the photos of the places. I mean, that's where you went, and that it was not distracting. It was enhancing.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
John had a comment?
Oh,
Don.
I just loved your descriptions, the words that you chose talking about Billy, was it Billy Blakely and the Ranger. It was almost like being thrown into like a paperback Harlequin romance or something. And I thought you did that very well, and enjoyed it. I was just wondering, that first photo behind you that we saw this afternoon, was that in front of Mount San Jacinto?
It's at the entrance to the park. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it's backward for me because I have it on mirror view, but
Okay. Now I see
think
it.
you can read it.
Yeah.
But John, that's so funny. Last night I was searching for romance Harlequin covers, images, and I was thinking if I could find the right one that wasn't too suggestive, I would use one of those. So it's funny that you said that, but I decided not to because they were all, too kissy and stripped down clothing, and that's not how it was.
You were
But
more PG.
but I'm so glad it evoked in you that image. That was what I was going for.
Well done.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I don't think you need it on your background. And the
You
beginning of the trail because it's the beginning of the story.
I'm
All right,
sorry.
our next storyteller is Bob.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here. And I'm on a highlight. My camera, I dropped my computer, so my camera's a little blurry. But as most of you know, I've been working on a book called Damsels Overcome. And it's about my struggle with the male narrative that I believed as a child when I was reading all these folk tales from the 12th to 18th century, and how I overcame most of that fear that I was supposed to be a servant or a damsel in distress, and finally became a writer like I wanted to be, and a storyteller. I could stand up on stage and tell a story. Well, I'm at the end of it now, and I just put out an email for people to sign up for copies. They're called advanced reader copies if they won't. I'll put the address of my email down in the chat box. If you're interested, you can sign up to my website, email website if you like. And I'm going to tell the last story. And it's one of my favorites. It's called, I call it The Turtle and the Jackrabbit. My son this morning told me, no, Mom, tortoises walk on land. Well, when I was a child living in Colorado, back in the backwoods between farm and mining, we called them turtles. And every so often they would show up and we would look at them and probably torture them and horrible things to the poor little beasties. But I always loved this story because there were also these jackrabbits, and they were they were characters. They could just really jump. So this Aesop's story just really appealed to me, and I like to make an analyses out of things. I like to enhance things and adapt. So that's what I've done. And this is called The Turtle and the Jackrabbit. Well, one day Turtle was walking along in her slow little manner, and big, handsome Jackrabbit jumped up and he says, you're the slowest thing I've ever seen with those little stout legs, and you walk around with that house on your back. I don't know how you can do it. He says, I could run faster than you any day. Well, she slowly looked at him and turned her head towards him and said, sure, I think we should have a race. You never know who the winner would be. Well, the animals in the forest came out and they said, well, we'll make the track. And Rabbit and Turtle agreed. And this track was made, and there was the line to go, and they said go. So Jackrabbit just jumped off really fast. And of course, Turtle, she took her time, and she had to go through, the first horrible thing was the blackberry bushes. Well, Rabbit was there, and he was eating the little buds, and he watched her, and then she walked along and he hopped off. He went out to the valley and he ate some flowers, and then he came back, and the next awful hurdle was they had to walk across a creek, and she did it very slowly, a foot at a time, and balanced herself. And Jackrabbit looked at her and shook his head, and he just jumped right over the creek, and she thought, it's okay. So he went off and he looked in the water and he did this, and he came back, and she was just slowly going down the path, just real slowly. And the next obstacle, they had put rocks down. And of course, here was Turtle edging herself through the rocks, getting over this and getting over that. And he just went hop, hop, hop over the rocks. And then he sat there and he kept looking at her and watching her go real slow. And it was kind of hypnotic. And before he knew it, old Jackrabbit, he'd fallen asleep. Well, Turtle, she just kept walking along and walking along and wondering where he was and walking along. And she got to the finish line. All the animals said hooray and clapped their hands. And she looked around and there was no jackrabbit. And they waited and they waited and he never did show up. And so finally she just waited at the edge and she fell asleep and tucked herself in. And all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom on her shell. And there was big handsome jackrabbit again. And he said, "Where is everybody?" And she said, "Well, we kept waiting for you." And he said, "Did you win?" And she said, "Well, yes, I did. Slow and steady did the job." And that's the tell. And I'm slow and steady, but I finally got my job done. Thank you for listening. All right.
Slow and steady does it. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing. Those Aesop's fables are important and useful to tell so many messages. So
Yeah, and you can highlight them and change them to
mhm,
keep the premise of it.
yes.
Some of you might have heard it before, but it's just lovely, lovely, lovely.
Always again, it's just fine. Thank you.
I can
Sarah
share.
Lord oh, is there a comment?
I have a comment.
Okay, I was going to. Oh, Terry. Yes. Hi, Terry.
Hi. I love that. That was amazing. It was really concise and compact, which I strive for with actually both storytellers. It was clear. And I like breeded like hamsters and who knows what. And animals is like a thrill of mine. And their relationship and all that, their rapport, it was really beautiful. I could actually like see and smell like the grass around, and it was just you really depicted the picture with words. So it was very, very amazing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Terry. Our next teller is Sarah Lord.
I am practicing this. I will not be seen, but the pictures in the children's book will be seen with my telling the story. So I'm more concerned about my voice making it interesting than my actually telling. The name of the story is The Way You Begin. It was written by Jacqueline Woodson, illustrated by Rafael Lopez. I am Angelina, and I want to share some things that I have learned. There will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you. Maybe it will be the color of your skin, your clothes, or the cut of your hair that is different. There will be times when no one understands the way the words curl from your mouth, or understand the beautiful language of the country you have left behind. My name is Roberto. We just moved here from Venezuela. And because they don't understand, the classroom will fill with laughter until the teacher quiets everyone down. Roberto from Venezuela, your teacher says so softly and beautifully that your name and homeland sound like flowers blooming, the first bright notes of a song. There will be times when the words don't come and your own voice, once huge, now smaller, when the teacher asks, "What did you do last summer? Tell the class your story." "Well, we went to France," Chayla says. "These shells came from a beach in Maine." A boy named Jonathan holds out a jar filled with tiny shells so fragile, they look like they'll turn to dust in your own untraveled hands. "My whole family went to India. We went to Spain. We spent the summer in South Carolina. Each souvenir, a small triumph of a journey, the travels and tales going on and on and on. And as you stand in front of that room, you can only remember how the heat waved as it lifted off the curb, and your days spent at home caring for your little sister, who made you laugh out loud and hug you hard at nap time. You can only remember the books you kept on reading long after she had fallen asleep. And in that room where no one else is quite like you, you look down at your own empty hands and wonder, what good is this when other students were flying around the world and sailing over the ocean and going somewhere else? Well, there will be times when the lunch your mother packed for you is too strange or unfamiliar for others to love as you do. Even when your own friend Nadja will wrinkle her nose and say, ooh, what's in there anyway? And you'll wonder, how come she doesn't see the rice beneath the meat and the kimchi? You'll wonder why she doesn't remember that rice is the most popular food in the world. Well, there will be times when climbing the bars are too high, the run is too fast and far, the game isn't one that you could ever really play. I don't want him on our team. Well, you can watch. Maybe you can have a turn later. There will be times when the world feels like a place that you're standing all the way outside of. And all that stands beside you and your own brave self, steady as steel and ready, even though you don't yet know what you're ready for. There will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you, until the day you begin to share your stories. My name is Angelina, and I spent my whole summer with my little sister. Your voice will be stronger than it was a minute ago. We were reading books and telling stories, and even though we stayed right on our block, it was like we got to go everywhere. Hey, your name is like my sister's, Roberto says. Her name is Angelina too. And all at once in the room where no one else is quite like you, the world opens itself up a little wider to make some space for you. This is the day you begin to find the places inside, find your laughter and your lunches, your books, your travel, and your stories, where every new friend has something a little like you and something else fabulously not quite like you at all. The end.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, appreciating one another to tell our own story, because our ancestors come from different places, our summer experiences and travels are different, or as Angelina, she traveled through stories. So we certainly, we had to travel today already to the mountains.
The theme of the event is diversity, how we're alike but different.
Yes. Always need a reminder for that and appreciation for one another. So Sarah, I appreciate you. Thank you for telling today. Our next teller is David Chittenden from Orange City in Orange County, down Southern California. Hi, David. Come on in.
Hi, thank you for having me as a guest. I'm going to tell a story today called Climbing the Mesa. And it goes like this. Some folks who haven't lived in southern Wisconsin don't know about the mesa. But in fact, there's a mesa in southern Wisconsin that rises up above the rolling plain. Oh, now it's not like the Great Stone Mesa of Arizona. That's only maybe 50 foot high and a square block on top. It's covered by bushes and grasses, much like the rest of the state. Geologists think that when the glaciers of the last great ice age scraped away the top of the state of Wisconsin, that the mesa was unaccountably missed and stands at its original height. I arrived at the mesa one noon with a group of young people from the university. We parked on the south side and it rose before us like a vertical wall, but it was cut. It was cut by cracks and crevices, cracks in which one could climb. And it would be foolish to suppose that a young man of 20 years could resist climbing the mesa. And as luck would have it, Marianne and I decided to climb in the same crease. Oh, she would have to go first, of course, because Marianne was such a lithe sprite of a creature that if she were to fall, I would be able to break her fall. But if chunky old Dave were to fall on Marianne, we'd both be at the bottom in a hurry and broken up. So up she went, and so easily, so quickly. She was like a pixie climbing a morning glory stem. I lumbered along behind, stretching and straining for each toehold and handhold. Marianne got to the top and she popped over the top out of sight. Now I had to get there. Now I really had to get there. And after another 5 minutes of labor, I was there. Well, I was almost there. I could see over the top of the mesa. I could see through the tall grass. Marianne down on all fours, scouting out those wild blueberries, those tart messengers of God's grace. No, I really had to get there. I really had to get there, but something had happened. I was stuck. I was stuck. You know, you can get stuck climbing in a crease when you can't go up and you can't go down. At least you can't go down slowly as you would prefer to do so. Well, finally, I threw my leg up. Now my leg used to go up higher when I was young. I threw my leg up and caught the heel on the top of the mesa. Then I pulled myself up with handfuls of that tough Wisconsin grass. Marianne was looking the other way when I slid over the top of the mesa on my belly, probably on purpose. Well, it wasn't long before I was down on all fours, picking out those wild blueberries with Marianne. And there were several other people around at the same time. Time went so fast that afternoon. It wasn't long, it didn't seem like long, before I felt a change, a bit of a breeze, a touch of dampness. I looked up and I saw that the sun was getting low in the sky, and the awful thought occurred to me, how are we going to get down from here? Because, you know, going down is a lot easier than coming up. I turned away from Marianne so she wouldn't see my fear. But she knew, somehow she knew. Marianne stood up and in a high, lilting voice, she said, "Time to go home." And she started skipping toward the north end of the mesa. I followed along at a half gallop. I would have followed her anywhere. Well, much to my surprise, I've told you that the south end of the mesa was a vertical wall. The top was rather flat, but much to my surprise, the north end was a smooth incline down to the rolling plain. Marianne danced down that incline lightly as a fairy and skipped out onto the plain and out of my life forever. But she left me with something. She left me with a beautiful memory that I can take with me wherever I may go. But wait, as some people know, I don't always tell the truth. Oh, the truth is that there was a mesa there in southern Wisconsin, and I did climb right to the top of it. But there never was a Marianne.
That's a beautiful story, David. And who knew that we were both going to tell stories about climbing and not being able to get down? It was lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what the surprise is. We never know with uncharted territory of swamps, who's going to bring what. So that was fantastic. Yeah. And it worked well. You didn't have the photos, but you had the words to give us the photos to our mind. And that's great. Yeah, I could imagine it.
I
Yeah.
love that one line. I would have followed her anywhere. That was just beautiful, just thrown in there, you know.
Mhm. Oh, he has a way with words. Mr. David does. Thanks, David.
I can almost taste the blueberries.
Yes, that was a wonderful description. So who work on stories know those words are important. Thanks, David, so much.
You're welcome.
Ida, you are up. We would love to hear an informal story. So that's what we're here for, just to enjoy.
Well, this seems to be a day for mountain stories. So I will share a story from the K-Rock Indians in Northern California, a story about an area near Mount Lassen. And this Indian legend, this Native American legend, comes from a time perhaps when that mountain was not quite as quiet as it is now. And a story perhaps that makes me pause when I think about not an awful lot of rain around our part of California. The story is Fire Race. Long ago, and many changes ago, when the animals could talk, the animals sat around one day, and it was very cold, and they talked among themselves. We are freezing, and we cannot get to food. We can, our bones are shaking, and we are so cold. And the old man coyote, the wise one, said, I know that they're high on the mountain where the Yellow Jacket sisters live, where we can see their home and the fire that comes from it. There on the top of the Yellow Jackets mountain, they have fire. And with that fire, we could be warm. But they will not share. They are selfish sisters. And so I have a plan, but we must all work together. Now, the animals knew about Coyote. Yes, he was old, but yes, he was wise. And oh, yes, he was tricky. He was known for playing his tricks, and now he needed their help. They all gathered together and listened to his plan. Everyone seemed excited except Turtle. Oh, Turtle listened and he said to himself, I move so slowly. What can I do? He asked. Coyote just shook his head and nodded and said, yes, all of us will be able to help. And so the next day, Old Man Coyote carefully gathered several things, and he began the climb up the side of the mountain. It was steep, it was rocky, and he was old. And so, just as the sun had reached its peak, he got closer to the top, and there was the entrance to the home of the Yellow Jacket sisters, with the fire coming and reflecting from the cave's mouth that was open. Let me come in, said Coyote. Let me come in, and I will make you beautiful. Well, the Yellow Jacket sisters were tall and slim and bright, bright yellow. But they were dangerous. Not those little creatures that we know of today, but they were hugely tall and thin, and they had very dangerous stingers. You may come in, they said, but no tricks, for they knew Coyote's reputation. But Coyote knew their reputation too, for you see, they were known to be very, very vain. They were known to think themselves very beautiful and to be very jealous of each other. Come in, but no tricks. So Old Man Coyote hobbled in, and there in the middle of the cave was a fire burning with sticks ablazing. I shall make you beautiful, he said. And he leaned over and got one of the sticks that was burnt on the end, and he began to paint the Yellow Jackets' backs. Black stripes were now on their backs, and each one looked at the other and said, am I not beautiful? Am I not gorgeous? Lean over, and I shall paint your heads and make you even more beautiful. And so, as they bent down, Coyote grabbed a burning stick in his mouth and he ran down the side of that mountain. Down the mountain he ran with a blazing stick in his hand or in his mouth, and he ran as fast as his old legs could carry him over the rocks with the Yellow Jacket sisters flying behind him. He knew that stings from the Yellow Jacket sisters were very painful, but many stings could mean more than pain. It could mean death. And so he ran as fast as he could, but he knew he had a plan. As he ran, up above him eagle swooped. The eagle swooped down, and in her talons, she grabbed that burning stick and swooped down the face of the mountain. The Yellow Jacket sisters now knew they had competition, and they began flying as fast as they could behind her. Down she swooped, and down she flew until she saw Mountain Lion. She dropped that burning, blazing stick into the Mountain Lion's mouth. He grabbed it in his teeth, and down he went with his paws, quickly, surely going down the rough and rocky side of the mountain. Very quickly, Mountain Lion flew with the eagles, saying goodbye as he hurried down towards the woods with the red bark of the redwood trees. There was Fox. Fox, whose fur matched those trees and would be hard for the Yellow Jacket sisters to keep up with. Fox grabbed the stick, the burning stick, and darted in between the redwood trees as the Yellow Jackets tried to keep up with him. Where was he? As he came out of the woods, there was Bear. Big, strong, woolly, furry Bear with his big paws. And Bear grabbed the stick in his mouth, and there he went, sure-footed and strong, as he went down the mountain towards the pond. And there was Turtle. Turtle took a look, and he knew. Turtle knew he had a job to do, and he grabbed the stick in his mouth, and he pulled his head in as much as he could, and he pulled in his arms and his legs, and with his little tail, he began to flip. He flipped, flop, 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 like a flat rock down the side of the mountain towards the next lower pond. Down he went. His hard shell would be hard for those Yellow Jackets to sting through, and yet there was his little tail. Aye! They got the edge of his tail just a little bit as he came to the edge of the water. There was the frog. The frog hopped out of the pond, groom, groom, and with the pouch underneath his mouth, groom, he swallowed the fire. He swallowed the fire and went below the water surface, and the Yellow Jacket sisters began to circle that pond. Around and around they flew, but it had been a long, long journey. And the frog did not come up. Finally, exhausted, the Yellow Jacket sisters went back and left that pond. As they were going, the frog hopped out of the water and spat that blazing fire into the roots of a willow tree right next to the pond. The willow tree burst into flame, and then the flame was gone. What happened? Where's the flame? We have no fire. All that work, and there is nothing to show for it? But Old Coyote said, just wait. Bring me a log. Bring me that stick from another willow, that stick from the willow. And he began to rub the sticks together in a special way, and some moss. And suddenly the sparks flew, the moss blazed, and there was fire. And so he said, come together. Whenever you need fire, it is in the wood. Whenever you need fire, we can use it carefully, but use it carefully. And so the animals and then their friends, the humans, use the fire to cook their food, to keep themselves warm, and we should hear Coyote's warning to use fire carefully, especially when it's getting dry in California. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. Fantastic story. Intricate and great descriptions. We were talking about that and emotions and gestures. It was great. Thank you so much. Any feedback from Miss Ida? That was great.
I'll share from a story by Jonathan Long, but a very old Native American tale.
I was just
title again?
amazed. Hello, I was amazed by your ability to, you were kinetic. You're sitting in a chair, right? And yet you've conveyed all this movement by whatever you're doing. And I keep thinking, oh yeah, but she's in a chair. So I thought that was great. Whatever you're doing, that's right.
Thank you.
It's working.
Yeah, this is John. Yeah, I liked how you showed a lot of emotion, and I think that really carried through with the whole story. It really, what you conveyed it very well. Thank you.
All right, these mountain stories reminded me of an adventure that I took long ago, and then the recent adventure I had. So I'll tie them briefly together. Let's see, what year? Anyway, some time ago, my husband and I'm always telling my husband, now we're very different personalities, but I said, we're going to go to the mountains, and we're going to go to Mount Lassen. This was some years ago. Our son, we took our second son. He was the first year of college, and the oldest son was busy working. So we took younger son Peter with us to Mount Lassen. We stayed in a little motel, where you say down the road, lower than the entry gate, first motel down the road there. So we weren't camping or anything. But this was July 27th. When we drove there, the roads were closed to snow. There was no pass on the day we drove there. The first day, we just kind of get in what we could, but roads were closed to go up and over the mountain, which is very scenic. Well, I had been hoping to climb to the peak. 2 days later, we heard the road is open. So we ventured to go to the parking lot to climb the peak. Now, before we left, I'm out hiking and doing different adventures, but Fred often is at home, and that's his choice. But before we went to pack, I said, take your gloves. Well, he didn't have gloves. I said, you should go get some snow gloves, but that didn't happen. That's up to him. You need to take a hat. He didn't have any sunglasses. You should buy some sunglasses, but didn't happen. It's up to him. So we went and we were ready to go climbing on the mountaintop. So when we drove, the snowplow had just been in, hours before, clearing it, and the walls of the snow were like 15 feet high. They were way up there because this was July 27th and there'd been so much snow that winter. It was something. We found the parking lot. Yeah, that was obvious. And then where's the beginning of the trail? Because there is snow everywhere. We didn't see, but then we saw a trail. Well, people have been on that one. Looks like maybe the day before they started a trail. So it was heading up the mountain. So we started on that one. And we went along this trail that had been made, the day before. And then we ended up on a glacier. And I thought, this isn't the normal trail, but this glacier, the trail came into the side of the glacier, which went down. And I got to get my gestures here. The glacier went down, but the trail came into it to the side. And then they had chipped out stair steps. So, but yeah, stair steps up the icy glacier snow. So that was a way to get up. We needed to get up. So I went in front of Fred. Well, earlier Peter said, Dad, you want your coat? And we were kind of comfortable. Peter carried the backpack. So he had Fred's coat. My husband is Fred. And Fred goes, no, I don't need my coat. Anyway, I lean forward into the stair steps and I climb up and I turn around and Fred is way down there. He is crawling up the steps because he's not comfortable and he crawls and I just wait. And meanwhile, Peter is a mountain goat and he climbs on up, he's first year college and he goes up and he's gone. And Fred is crawling. I waited quite a while, but he made his way up. And then we found it looked like the trail. Oh, good. Now at last we're on the trail. That was not a trail. That was a, adventure person chipping into the ice. I remember coming on the side of the mountain and the wind was blowing so hard, it took my breath away. I mean, I could hardly breathe and I had to turn my head to the mountain or kind of turn back to see the trail and come back. We ventured up, and of course it got colder and colder. And now I'm fine. I've got my jacket. I've got my hat. I've got my sunglasses. I've got my snow gloves. I am fine, but I just got to make it up. We get to the top and Fred is not in good shape. He's got altitude sickness and he doesn't feel good. And, I catch up with Peter. Peter, bring the jacket. Meanwhile, other hiker, younger, lent Fred a sweatshirt just to sit for a bit and warm up because he was not in good shape. He needed to just rest. And I heard, oh, the ranger is here. He is going to give his ranger talk in 20 minutes. Fred says, I'm going back down. Oh, I want to hear the ranger talk, but my husband needs to go down. So I'm going to join him. We did get the coat from Peter, put it on Fred, and he gave the sweatshirt back to the other hiker. That was nice. So down we went. And we found Peter joined us and they found a place it's a long ways down from the peak down to just the parking lot. They found a place though to sit on our butt and slide down to take some trail mileage off. That actually was fun. We all did that. That was pretty fun. Got back to the car and the rest is history. But these are times when I call it, we're adventuring, because sometimes the kids or the husband will say, I don't know if that was very much fun, but I say it was an adventure. Now, Wednesday, I went with Peter and his wife and his two children who are 16 and 19. So we went to Muir Woods on Wednesday and we started on the boardwalk. What is that? 1.5 miles or 2 of just boardwalk, and then it goes up. So I told Peter, who just recently had knee surgery, I said, you be careful. I don't want you to wreck up your newly fixed knee, but I'm fine, I'm fine. So he basically was fine. In short, we went up and we were looking for a loop because he had the map. Well, on the map, it looks so close. I mean, it's just the little ways, well, we couldn't find the end of what we call the loop to come back the other trail. And so, but the kids, well, the granddaughter, she gave up first. Like, I want to go back. She actually expressed herself enough that the parents said, okay. And our oldest grandson said he would go back with her. So that's what she wanted to do. So the kids turned around and we adults, we forged on. So we forged on, and little did we know, one more staircase up was the end of the loop to get back to the other trail, which came an alternate route down to the parking lot. So it was fun. We had another adventure, but down at the end, and in the middle of that discussion of going back, staying, I laughed inside because it reminded me of Fred and I. We're in the middle of the mountains on other adventures, and we're discussing back and forth. We're lost. We don't know where we're going. And in the end, Marion always says, we had an adventure. And so Wednesday, I thought it was humorous because here was Peter, the leader of the pack, just like me. We're going on an adventure, and Peter took his family with me on an adventure this week. So that was fun. So yeah, your stories just reminded me of that. So I just thought, well, we have a few minutes, so I'll tell that one. Life is fun and funny. And when it comes around to your kids, that's funny. Yeah. And humor. So I was just kind of laughing at them. All right. We will close off our recording right now and just stay for a little bit of chat. And we appreciate everybody who came to our